Start pretending there's like other people on this podcast. Like, are the mics good? Levels are fine? Everyone in there? Yeah. Levels are good?
It's like the late 90s, early 2000s rappers would always be like, turn me up in my headphones.
Turn them shits up. I can't hear the music.
Well, if we were going to do that, we shouldn't have said it. We shouldn't have put all of our cards on the table right out of the gates.
Levels. Are they good?
Does my voice sound extra gravelly today?
Yeah, you sound like you were...
all the female listeners of the podcast are going to be like, hey, Mr. Gravelly Voice guy.
Until they heard that.
Like that family.
Hey! Yeah, all the girls are going, hey, nowadays.
Like that Family Guy episode where Peter gets sick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was like, that's doing it for me. Doesn't he start like a sex call line or something?
Anyway, David, listen. As part of preparation for today's show, do you have your crack pipe?
I did absolutely.
You have your lighter?
I did absolutely nothing but all the illegal stuff, of course.
Most importantly, do you have your crack?
If I don't, I'm going to get it by hook or by crook.
It's like, I think about this all the time in terms of the quote unquote
crack pipe.
People that rule us. Are they stupid or are they so incompetent that the line is blurred that you can't tell whether they're stupid or not?
And which one is better?
Yeah. Or conversely, which from my end is the more gracious interpretation? To assume somebody is stupid or that they're evil? Which conundrum. Which is a nicer way to interpret somebody's actions?
I would much rather be a moron
than evil, right? Yeah.
Because you can forgive a moron. You can't forgive pure evil.
So the stupidity that I'm referring to is the Biden administration sitting around kits that have been jokingly called, although they have retraced from, sending crack pipes into lower income communities per the press release of their own actions. And this is funny on a lot of levels.
Oh boy.
I don't even need to go into the obvious one. Plenty of other comedians have done that already. But the one that I think is funny is the political incompetence of it all. That, all during the election, Hunter Biden had all those pictures about smoking crack while his dad was like the drug warrior of lock him up and throw away the key back in the 90s. And that same administration says, you know what we should probably do? Send out something that looks like crack pipes.
I got an idea.
For people that I've spent my entire political career throwing in cages.
They walked into a room and said, hey guys, we need a new campaign. Hunter fucking put his hand up. I got an idea. Who let this fucker in again?
Oh, I didn't think that is his fingerprint on the Biden administration.
I got it.
We now know Hunter is involved in the decision-making process.
When we start dropping crack pipes on foreign nations, either as items of war or as items of relief.
Remember how pissed off the left was at Trump the whole time for having his daughter and son-in-law in the administration?
Yeah, like, this is wrong.
I'll say this. At least he blatantly and openly put them in positions.
Right, they didn't just start dropping gold bars on people's heads.
It wasn't just Hunter sitting in a literally smoke-filled room saying, I think we should send out free crack pipes, Dad.
What a good idea, Hunter. And the supportive dad that Biden is, it's like, we got to give him this one, guys. Come on, he hasn't had one in a long time.
That's why you're daddy's special boy.
Yeah, oh, this sweet boy. Caring boy.
All right.
All daddy has right now.
I think we've...
Aside from the dogs and his wife and his dignity.
I think we've done all the laughing about that we can without getting in trouble for something.
Okay. I don't want to get pulled. I don't get pulled so early. It's pretty early in the day for getting pulled.
All right. So I guess before we give the culture, the social justice wars any more cancel fodder, we should probably jump in. Welcome to Weapons Meme Destruct. Weapons of Meme Destruction podcast episode 81. I haven't done that 80 plus times before, which can be found at wmdpodcast.com/81. Also, any podcast app. You can find us on YouTube. I don't think YouTube will take this one down. I don't know. We're terrorists either way, but they won't take it down. But if they do, you can find us on Odyssey and then link up with us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. So actually one more thing before we jump in, we do want to shout out and thank two of our supporting listeners, Mario and Megan, who contribute to the show enormously, not just in terms of monetary remuneration. Just saying that word.
Wow.
Yeah, see, I think I said it right, too.
That's how much he appreciates you. He just invented a word that absolutely never existed before that moment.
Don't make me look it up.
I will Google it.
It's a real thing.
I wouldn't even know how to start spelling that damn thing.
So thank you to them.
Yes,
thank you to anybody that follows any of our social media and likes and comments on it, because you guys have no idea how much that helps out with the algorithm. And believe me, the TikTok experience has let us know firsthand how damaging taking that away can be. So thank you for following us, and thank you for helping support and share the show.
And thank you for you just being you. How about that?
For joining us in our sane space. Oh, by the way, things that Mario and Megan get as supporting listeners is membership in the private Facebook group, where it's just your gracious hosts here and the people that support the show. Which you can get in at the $5 a month level over on the website. So.
And after that shameless plug.
Well, and the final part of the shameless plug, they helped pick today's episode topic because David and I were caught between a proverbial rock and a hard place in the implosion of the simulation. Did we want to talk about the COVID about face, or did we want to talk about what we're getting ready to talk about? And the supporting listeners help us pick that topic. So.
Right. So thank you again for your input.
Yeah, exactly.
And helping us become the 127th Australian government podcast political thing.
Oh, yeah, by the way, the person or group of people in Australia helping us with that.
We know you're on the low down there.
Had helping us with the ranking down there.
Figuratively
have told us this week that David sucks.
Yes, I have been told a couple of times that I suck, and
if you'll recall back to the last episode, we reached our threshold, and David now has to start making
keeps me grounded. Fuck, damn it.
So thank you for that as well. So today's episode is the DHS, and for the non-American listeners, that's the Department of Homeland Security. The DHS's it was an advisory on the state of domestic terrorism in the United States. Title, Summary of Terrorism Threat to the U.S. Homeland. And you'll find that this long, winding, convoluted definition of what terrorism is and the state of it in the U.S. basically definitely captures your gracious co-host here, and it probably captures most of you, too. They've essentially...
I used to think you had to fly planes into buildings or try to light your fucking shoes on fire on a plane to be a terrorist, but now it says... I could just say some disparaging comments into a microphone and then, holy shit, I'm a terrorist.
Exactly. And it's this kind of massaging is a gracious way to interpret it, but massaging of definitions such that the word is essentially meaningless.
If you're not massaging definitions, what are you doing in life? Okay? You're not just
I guess it depends on the type of massage.
There's a lot of kinks and knots in those definitions.
Listen,
we got to massage
a deep tissue sports massage might be acceptable, but what is it, a Nauru massage?
Excuse me?
Is that what it's called?
Bless you.
Nauru? I don't know what it's called.
This isn't Naruto. We're not style benders. We're not air benders. This isn't fucking...
No, there's
a game out here, Dane.
There's a certain type of massage that is NSFW.
I've had Rolfing done, which is... I thought I was a man until he went all the way down and started hitting my hamstrings, and then I just screamed on a table for 45 minutes. I don't want to relive that again.
Then don't.
Don't put me in that.
Why you're trying to right now?
I took all my testicular fortitude to walk in a second time, and then he gave me like a softer treatment. I was like, okay, I think I'm a man now. Anyway.
So,
massaging aside, let's get back to the topic.
If you're new here, episode 77, just a couple episodes ago, we went through the entire Joe Rogan letter and we went kind of line by line. This is a lot shorter than that. No, it was 77.
Oh, okay.
You thought it was 79, so you shut your cornhole.
That is where corn goes.
This is a lot shorter than that. That was a 2+ hour episode, but we're going to go line by line through this because it is important. And but that's the plan for the show. And we've already unburied the lead by telling you exactly what the conclusion is, but now you're going to find out why.
Yeah.
So the summary starts with, quote, the United States remains in a heightened threat environment fueled by several factors, including an online environment filled with false or misleading narratives and conspiracy theories and other forms of, and they link to this, mis, dis, and malinformation, which they're now acronyming as MDM, introduced and or amplified by foreign and domestic threat actors. Okay, so first sentence. All the buzzwords are there. An online environment filled with false or misleading narratives and conspiracy theories. And then, again, definitions are important. They create their own term, mis, dis, and malinformation. If you're guilty of that, you might be a terrorist.
Well, you know what I like? It's the packaging. It's the packaging they do, you see. The alphabet soup. They think that we're so dumb we can't remember mis, dis, and mit. What was the last one?
Mis, dis, and mal.
Anyway, that went over your head.
What?
So they
Sorry.
so they break it down.
I was reading the thing.
They break it down. It's like MDM. That's all you got to know. Isn't MDM a drug too?
MDMA, I think.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
They just missed. They need to
I think
say
that's what the kids are calling on the streets. The Molly.
They need to add aggressive misinformation so they could call it MDMA. Really get the kids to buy it up.
So let's just go through that little part right there. The mis, dis, and mal. Okay. Misinformation. According to who? We've gone through this on several episodes relative to COVID, right? Misinformation
Ad nauseum.
in March or April of 2020 was classified as discussing the lab leak theory in any respect whatsoever. You are engaged in misinformation. Fast forward, not even, I think probably 10, 11 months, so not even a full year, maybe it was a little more than a year. Now Fauci testified to that in front of Congress, that, yeah, we probably should look into that a little bit more because it's looking more likely that this didn't naturally originate. So, listen, you can already see from sentence 1 how wide the net has gotten. And if they're going to act in April to charge you with terrorism, but then the next year what you did would not have been classified as terrorism, too late, buddy. The grinds of the criminal justice system are already working against you.
They always do
the criminal injustice system, my bad.
Well, they always do that. They always admit when they get things wrong, like, our bad. Yeah. Sorry, you just spent 40...
Or it's acceptable for them to get it wrong, but not us.
Oh, our bad. You just spent 40 years in prison for something that you weren't guilty of. Here's a pat on the back and go get him, kid. We believe in you.
And then the last part of it, the malinformation. So mal assumes motive. That you know what you're saying is wrong, but you're doing it for purposes of division or, I guess in their case, to gin up terrorist ideations and other people and all that kind of stuff. Like you have ill intent behind whatever it is you're saying that we're now classifying as terrorism. Again, to that I say, according to who? This is the whole point a lot of people made about the whole Joe Rogan thing. And I think if it
like
wasn't...
Joe Rogan was sitting there going, I'm going to have this doctor on. And he's going to spread malinformation. He's going to kill millions of ivermectin.
Yeah.
Fucking idiots.
It was either Edward Snowden or Glenn Greenwald. One of the two had a tweet about this. And the point they made is, listen, you give me a list of all of the people that Joe Rogan is responsible for dying. Not this imaginary, because he said words, we can attribute a certain percentage of COVID deaths to him, but a concrete list of people he's killed. Because I can name for you, by name, some innocent men, women, and children, just because they happen to be born on the other side of the planet, that every quote unquote, respectable president, and even the unrespectable Donald Trump, have just completely vaporized with drone strikes. And the opinion writers and policymakers at the New York Times or at the DHS are cheerleading that the whole time. And so these people now stand on some sort of moral high ground to say who's responsible for malinformation that could lead to the loss of life.
And you remember way back when they passed the Patriot Act and you said, sure, take a look in everything. Take away all my freedoms, my privileges. Look into every aspect, every corner of my life. I have nothing to hide. I'm not a terrorist.
So I don't have anything to fear.
I'm not a terrorist. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, like, remember, like, the slippery slope. We keep warning about the slippery slope. Well, I don't know if we're halfway down it right now, but it is slippery as shit. They must have sprayed this thing with, like, Dawn or something, like that dishwashing soap, so you get the real good slide.
It's slipperier than the first time I went snowboarding and walked away with a concussion at the end of the day.
I think it was fun. I don't quite remember.
Guys, we're about to catch our front edge. We should probably have a helmet on.
We should. And then when you do concuss yourself, don't throw your gloves uphill. So you have to go back up.
I can neither confirm nor deny that is a real story or if that's just extra commentary David's adding on.
Do you hear the lament?
But to your point about the conspiracy theories thing is, so in addition to that, their favorite, throw it out as conspiracy theory, is conspiracy theories at this point are nothing more than fucking spoiler alerts. So, like,
I mean, it was supposed to be a conspiracy theory if you, like, thought they're beaming waves of, discontent into your head. That's why you had to wear a tinfoil hat. Then you find out that, their cell phone's radiating your balls.
Exactly. Like,
we put the tinfoil on the wrong head is what we did. Fuck. We were almost there.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. We let them walk us right into it like sheep to slaughter. All of us. Even the critical thinkers.
We got it wrong. No, guys, we're supposed to be in this line.
But the conspiracy, so like, to David's historical reference of the Patriot Act, there were tons of people, not just libertarians, also back when the anti-war left actually used to be the anti-war left, when W. Bush was in office, but now he's some sort of person to hold up as a better time before Trump. Anyway, before that whole about face, the political left was joining libertarians in many respects and saying, hey, Patriot Act, not good things. that might have some ill consequences for us later.
Pretty aggressive stuff in here, guys.
And now those same people would cheer on this bulletin release because don't they know everybody who would fall under this now extremely broad category is only people they hate. Trump supporters, white people, conservative Christians. Anybody that questions anything that they think the government should have control over, universal health care.
They hate white people?
Canceling student debt. If you disagree with those things, according to this group of people, you might be a domestic terrorist.
What have white people ever done?
So, all right. I said this is a lot shorter than the Joe Rogan letter, and it is, but we take that long on each sentence. We will be here 2 hours.
Oh, shit.
I thought that was an important jump off. Okay, sentence 2, quote, these threat actors seek to exacerbate societal friction.
What'd you say?
These threat actors, they didn't even put quotes around that. Like, they're just saying that that's what these people are. These dis, and malinformationers are threat actors. So you see how the use of language kind of morphs? You see how words matter? And, this is something, I don't know if I was aware of it. I didn't trust what the regime said because, obviously from our grandfather's experience, we were kind of like naturally born into libertarianism from the distrust, question everything mentality that a lot of libertarians eventually hold when they see how many bad things happen. But because our family experience, I say we were kind of born into it. The use of, so I didn't know if I thought the use of words were so important now, but since I've went through the whole gauntlet of law school and stuff like that, and that the entire profession of law is about the use of words. It's persuasion, either verbally or on paper. The use of words definitions are critically important. And when you start to see subtle shifts like this, in your own reading of the opinion narrative of whatever the topic is, read with a critical eye to how they shift and how they mold words to mean things that they never meant. And again, concept from 1984. This is what newspeak is, making something completely the opposite of what it actually is.
Or saying something one day and changing the entire narrative the next day, and and saying you never said anything different, and people going along and believing you.
Yeah. Gaslighting, all of these tactics
if only we
intended.
had any current day circumstances we could point to and say that's what they're doing right there.
Yeah. So now subjective things like what qualifies as misdis or malinformation is now a concrete thing of you're a threat actor if, in somebody else's subjective opinion, you have participated in the former. So back to the sentence. Quote, these threat actors seek to exacerbate societal friction, hold on to that one, sow discord, and undermine public trust. Again, recall back to the Joe Rogan episode about public trust in government institutions to encourage unrest, which could potentially inspire acts of violence. So could potentially, but, they're still threat actors now, and we're going to put them in jail. So back to those key words, societal friction. David, if you had to look back on the last 2+ years, where would you say that the majority of societal friction came from? I know this is a tough one.
I'm going to go with Donald Trump for 400, Alex.
Exactly. If you're looking over here, then you're not seeing what we're doing over there. That's a very coy play by them.
It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
All I know is that there was a lot of peaceful protests.
Mostly peaceful protests.
Mostly peaceful
A lot
protests.
of mostly peaceful protests.
And there was one, like, what would you call it? A sit-in meeting on a certain date or a certain day in January, where someone,
or as I like to call it, an overzealous cosplay event.
Where'd everyone go?
we thought we were still role playing.
Yeah, guys, come on.
Yes, so the societal, and I'll use the second one in the sentence too, put them together. Societal friction and sow discord. Now, you can have your opinions about the people that regurgitate the things that they hear on CNN or Fox News or anything in between about whether they put themselves on one side of the COVID narrative or the other. But, and as we're always fond of pointing on the show, there is only one institution in society with a monopoly on violence that can do things that if you and I were to do personally, we'd be thrown in jail for. So when they institute things like mask mandates or vaccine passports and stuff like that, they are using their coercive force that nobody else could legally and freely do in terms of forcing people. They're doing that, which again creates a certain sort of backlash in a group of the population, which then pits them against the other group of the population that just says, fall in line, follow the rules. The genesis of that social friction and sowing of discord is government action. It's them. It's the people now wanting to call everybody terrorists for doing exactly that to society. It's like Trudeau's thing with the truckers, right? He has closed down the economy and destroyed the free flow of goods for 2 years with his COVID policies. And now he's saying that truckers blocking the bridge, the main trade point to the United States, or blocking commerce in Ottawa. That's an impermissible protest, is when you disrupt people's lives and the economy. So what you did for 2 years on mass scale.
And then held everyone accountable and turned everyone into a demon that didn't want to follow your rules, but then they step out of line.
Yeah, that wanted to simply go to work. Mm-hmm. Somebody that just wanted to go to work. Leave me alone and let me go to work. That person was a pariah.
And by the way, that would have helped your country too by adding,
productivity to the workforce.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know a lot in this crazy mixed up world, but I do know that was no small contingent of truckers.
Exactly not. And all of the truckers on planet Earth could not create 1/10 of the amount of destruction that not only domestic COVID policies just in the US, but around the world have caused since then.
And now
look no further than the inflation rate, look no further than the supply chain disruptions. All of that stuff is COVID response related.
Was it Hofstra that just came out and said that the study shows that the lockdowns and the masks and all this shit, didn't work.
Yeah. Exactly.
They're like, hey, I don't think we got this one right.
Yeah. Which again, a lot of the points they made in that release were points that were being made in early 2020. Like we always posit the whole, and during the expert debate.
It would have been nice.
You had Jay Bhattacharya of Stanford. You had Sunitra Gupta of Oxford University. You had Martin Kulldorff of Harvard. Highly respected institutions, and by all accounts, highly respected academics in their fields for decades before COVID hits. They write a counter narrative and says, I think we should focus on focus protection. And they disagreed with the prevailing COVID narrative. And those highly touted experts pre-COVID were now the epitome of dis, or malinformation. And were run completely out. And you can't listen to those experts. You only have to listen to the experts of the group of people who are now classifying terrorism as basically everything.
Forget all that too. It's again, just to reiterate or drive that nail completely home. One of the Joe Rogan guests that he had on holds 7 patents in creating the thing that they're desperately trying to jab into your arm as many times as they can.
And he says, I have some thoughts.
I've got some reservations, got some notes. And they're like, oh, he's a lunatic. Did you hear he's been kicked off of Twitter? Which we did. Did you hear that? Did you hear that we kicked him off Twitter? You can't trust him. He's not even validated on Twitter. It's not even a blue check mark.
The gatekeepers of not popular, but just respected and allowable opinion, as Tom Woods would say. Those gatekeepers have effectively said, this guy's not into the club.
My point being is that it doesn't matter who or what you are to them. If you go against them, you're no longer invited to their birthday party.
Exactly. And the third point from that sentence, the undermining of public trust. Again, we hit that for 2+ hours on episode 77 with the whole Rogan letter about who is really undercutting public trust. And if you don't think, now again, this isn't a whole, I know a medical professional, so their opinion is the whole thing. That's what they do. That's not what I'm doing. But I know people in the medical field who, the frontline workers, who when they hear the name Fauci, they roll their eyes just as much as anybody else. Because they understand that this guy is an apparatchik. He doesn't practice medicine. He doesn't understand what it takes to actually treat patients. And he's setting the policy. This is the same thing I always say about education, right? If teachers were allowed to do what they are passionate about and went to school to do, education wouldn't be so bad. It's bureaucrats controlling the curriculum that screws up education. Same thing here in medicine. It's Fauci and the rest of the career bureaucrats controlling the policy, which is screwing up the field. And people in medicine agree, at least some that I know. You know what
we should do? We should start a war on education. We have a war on drugs. We have a war on personal freedoms.
We should start a war on
illiteracy. We're going to kill all the illiterates. What? No, the illiteracy. That's what we're going to do. We're going to kill the illiteracy.
Yeah, in this country. Instead of having a war on poverty, we should have a war on wealth.
We're gonna nuke that low grade average.
So listen, the societal friction, the sowing of discord, the public trust. This is that classic example of pot and kettle. Get the beam out of your eye before you pick the splinter out of your neighbor's. It's all of those.
This is Lex Luthor coming out and saying, "I'm going to get all these people that are trying to destroy the world and create a monopoly of power for myself."
I mean, it's the same argument against libertarians. Like, if we didn't have a government, then we'd have this like Mad Max style warlords thing. It's like, oh, would those warlords have nukes that could destroy the planet 20 times over? Yeah, probably. Oh, so you mean like what we have right now? It's like the worst case scenario for just trying more freedom is as bad as it is now.
Don't listen to my words and use them against me. How dare you? You're a terrorist now. Fuck you.
Maybe it won't be the worst.
Enjoy your trip down to Guantanamo, you fuck.
Maybe it'll be some variation of gray. Our society may not be utopic. I don't know if that's a word. Utopic.
There you go. You put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable there.
But if it's not perfect, if it's somewhere in that shade of gray before what we currently fucking have right now, that is a marginally better place to be.
That's all I'm saying. Don't you get it? Someone has to kill the babysitter.
Okay. So sentence 3, quote, Mass casualty attacks and other acts of targeted violence conducted by lone offenders and small groups acting in furtherance of ideological beliefs and or personal grievances pose an ongoing threat to the nation. So that's a lot of big fancy words for saying that, again, the people that we don't like could potentially engage in some sort of acts. Lone wolf, small groups, we don't know, but it could be really, really tomorrow. Bad if these people proliferate.
But someday they could do something naughty.
You know what? And I was just thinking, again, historically, another adjective for, what did they call us? They call us threat actors. You know another
MDMAs?
adjective for threat actors are in American history?
Patriots.
They're called founding fathers.
Yeah, they're called patriots.
Yeah.
You know.
They're called like the dudes who are like,
made this shit.
Hey, that dude over there in the red
we should probably write some rules. Some rules and regs that we got to follow so that this shit doesn't happen again.
Which cracked me up. Let me digress just a little bit. I promise not to go too far down that path. Listen, I hope this doesn't turn off a thin blue liner. Let's just have a discussion about a lot of different
fireside chat.
But for the purposes of the digression and the joke that I'm getting ready to make now, it's like oh, thin blue line cops, yada yada yada, and it's like, but also founding fathers, America, yada yada yada. Mm. It's like they don't realize what the founding fathers did. And it's also like they don't realize who was the ones coming around trying to round up the founding fathers' guns.
I feel like we got it. Like, no, this is just the first chapter. We got it. Then they fought a little bit, and then
I'm only pointing that out.
Statue of Liberty from France. We get it.
I hope that didn't offend you, and I hope that we can still talk about the incongruity between those viewpoints.
Let's try to.
But for now, I just wanted to leave it with that. So anyway, yeah, that long wordy sentence was just about.
They like using their wordy words.
If us quote unquote threat actors are allowed to get away scot-free, that bad things could happen. Oh, you mean like you trafficking guns that you want illegal on American streets to literal cartels right across the border and being, whoops, we lost track of those.
Son of a bitch.
You mean events like that?
And then saying Vin Diesel was involved?
Again, for our non-American audience, or if you haven't listened to all the episodes that we've referenced, it's called Operation Fast and Furious.
Yes.
Happened under as the left would tell you, the scandal-less, not scandalous, the absolute absence of scandals in the Obama presidency. I would say that's a pretty big one, maybe. Ongoing threat to the nation. Okay, sentence 4.
Threat to the nation.
While the conditions underlying the heightened threat landscape have not significantly changed over the last year. Well, that's good to hear.
So wait. Then why are you doing this in the first fucking place? If nothing's changed over the last year.
Over the last year. It got pretty bad up to the last year. It just hasn't progressed since then. I'm just saying. If we're looking at a graph of the trajectory
I'm saying, if it flattened out by itself, why are you changing it now? Why wouldn't you do it when it's on the rise?
Listen, David, I'm trying to read them as graciously as possible.
I know you are, but that doesn't even
if they're concerned,
doesn't make any sense.
If they're concerned about threat actors and mass casualty events has not risen over the last year,
we need to do something about
celebration.
This. We need to do something about this. We need to create more threat sectors by broadening the definition of threat.
Okay. Second clause of the sentence. Haven't increased over the last year. Quote, the convergence of the following factors. Ooh, they're giving us a handy little list. The convergence of the following factors has increased the volatility, unpredictability.
So they're forecasting it.
And complexity of the threat environment. It's volatile, it's unpredictable, and it's complex.
So we're going to have some light showers this afternoon following a threat of terrorism rise in the late evening. What are you guys doing? You're forecasting terror?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Here's Tom with the weather.
Now here, listen to this. So here's what my eyeballs read when I read that little phrase about volatility, unpredictability, and complexity of the threat environment. I don't know if other governments around the world, but this is what the U.S. government does. Is anytime somebody has to go testify in front of Congress and they don't want to answer the question, right? They can't be forced to, because what do they always appeal to? This is a matter of national security. And national security is this fancy little buzzword that has all of these implicit meanings, not the least of which behind them are, listen, Mr. Senator or Representative, elected representative of the people who are the true political power in this country. Again, keep in mind that that's what they tell you is going on with government. Hey, Mr. Elected Representative, that's a really good question. But you know what? I'm not going to answer it because matters of national security are highly volatile, unpredictable, and potentially complex.
It was such a good question that it would really fuck me over if I answered it.
A lot of us, and you too, sir.
Yeah. You're very incriminating right now, and I wish you'd just go away.
And you know, yeah.
You gotta laugh to keep from crying.
That's the between the line reading that they don't. That if you do, and again, that's why the title of this episode is "We're All Terrorists Now." If you do this between the line reading, critical thinking, comparing things to actual historical events that
you may be a terrorist
that happened within your life's memory, not even ancient American history, but happened within your lifetime, and you point to corollaries and you be like, wait a minute, you said to do this and that happened. Like, if you engage in that activity and talk about it with others, you might be guilty of mis, dis, and malinformation. Why?
MDMA.
Because you're questioning the legitimacy of this governing body to govern. How dare you? Or this federal agency to decide which moderate rebels to arm and which ones to not, that eventually turn into ISIS. If you question
this country
the credibility and intelligence and wisdom
so
of their
much easier to run without all these fucking free thinkers out here, I tell you what. Those people that, digest information and come up with their own conclusions. We don't need so many of them around. Just need some good old-fashioned, highly educated, willing to follow any mandate we put out people.
So, we are to the end of the bulletin because, as that sentence noted, they're going to give factors, and there's 3 factors.
Hey, Dane, do you think they're going to reward the good behaviors? And if so, you think they'll reward them with crack pipes?
I think this is all stick and no carrot.
Do you think Hunter's going to be involved?
Yeah.
In rewarding them with their crack pipes?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. So, what is criteria 1? Quote, the proliferation of...
You want to take that one again?
Let's put it in reverse. All right. Yeah. The proliferation
there you go, you nailed it.
Of false or misleading narratives which sow discord or undermine public trust in U.S. government institutions. So, just basically rehashing stuff they told you is an absolute fact not 2 sentences ago. Now they're saying this is just one of the criteria. We know it's happening. It's just one of the criteria, and whether it's applied to what happens in the future,
we didn't have to
completely up to us.
We didn't have to say this shit out loud. And now that we're halfway through saying it out loud, we wish that we didn't. We wish that we were just going to do this anyway. So we're going to finish it off by making it really official with these bulletin points, and we'll get out of your hair.
So when I read that sentence, that's criteria 1 of 3. When I read that sentence, I immediately retraced to the First Amendment. And a lot of people, Americans and non-Americans, throw away or throw around the concept of the First Amendment to apply to free speech. But the First Amendment actually covers more than free speech. So I want to just read through the text of the First Amendment to just show you that with just one criteria out of 3, a federal agency, the DHS, filled with bureaucrats that none of us voted for, that when they go to answer questions in front of the people who we voted for, can tell them no. People with that kind of power have, with the stroke of a pen, in an advisory, written the First Amendment completely out of the Constitution. So here's what the First Amendment protects. Congress shall make no law. Again, Congress, right? That body that's supposed to represent you, that can't ask these people questions. Yeah, that group. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So your religion, your speech, and the right to peaceably assemble and address grievances with your government. So back to that criteria. If you have a religious objection and have an objection to make thereto, right, like the vaccine, you have a religious exemption objection. If you want to talk about that, either through print or spoken media. If you want to assemble Canada trucker convoy, but that's also spilling into the United States, to address grievances with your government, those might be domestic terrorist threats. Under Criteria 1, those actions, all three actions encompassed by the First Amendment, are written completely out of the Constitution with the stroke of a pen by an unelected federal agency.
Huh.
Isn't it interesting how that works?
It's almost like they're saying, eat your soup and shut the fuck up.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, when people just say, and again, think about how dumb.
Or let them eat cake, I guess I should have said. That was the historical. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can we rewind? Let them eat
Marie
cake.
Antoinette. Yeah,
Okay.
get your time period.
How did that end for Maria, by the way?
Not David.
What's
just
that?
asking that question.
I
is
just
a
asked that
terrorist.
question.
You can't ask
She probably
that question.
had a pretty good life. She probably ate some cake after she ate that.
So notice
that.
also, by making a historical reference, you're probably engaged
Fuck.
if the context is wrong. You see,
how many times
is the title of the episode starting to make sense now?
How many times have we become terrorists alone on this podcast?
On this episode, let alone all of the previous 80 before now.
Mm-hmm.
So again, and the fact of how subjective this all is what's even more disgusting. Because again, yes, the Supreme Court, an opinion of 9 people, can also write things out of the Constitution, and they do all the time. But even as bad as that is, also, by the way, being unelected and serving life terms, not giving opinions one way or another on whether those things should change, but that's what the Supreme Court is, in fact. And people have problems with them writing opinions that interpret the Constitution in a way they don't like. But now you have people sitting in federal agencies doing it. Uh-huh. People who you don't even, at least you see Neil Gorsuch's name when he's up for nomination. These people that have been working in the DHS for 20 years, right, since basically the legislation that came out of 9/11 established it, people that have been in there since day one calling these kind of shots who you don't know from Adam. And if that person's politics don't align with yours, guess what? You're a domestic terrorist. That's why this pendulum swings both ways, even lefties who might support this now, because you think everybody that follows under this umbrella is a Trump-loving anti-vaxxer, and that it'll never apply to you. Well, how do you know the subjective opinions of that agency don't change to not like, I don't know, to not like canceling student loan debt or raising the minimum wage to $25 an hour? What happens if their politics are different from yours in the future?
Again, it's the short-sightedness we always reiterate on this podcast. It's like, when the door is swinging your way, be careful what you're doing, because it always swings back twice as hard. Like, you're not going to be in power forever. Like, so all these rules and mandates and however many justices you cheat to get in, or this, that, or the other, whatever political policies that you mandate during this time, there's a good chance that there's going to be a time that it swings back and hits you right in the face. And just maybe don't give it so many spikes on it when it does. That's all I'm saying. Maybe think twice before you fire something downrange like that. I don't know. Yeah. Just crazy thoughts.
Now, criteria 2, you're going to think about, you're going to be like, well, that sounds like a good criteria. But again, read between the lines. So the criteria starts out, quote, continued calls for violence directed at U.S. critical infrastructure, soft targets, and mass gatherings, faith-based institutions such as churches, synagogues, and mosques, institutions of higher education, racial and religious minorities, government facilities, and personnel, including law enforcement and the military, the media, and perceived ideological opponents. So if you're calling for violence against those types of group of people, that would fall under this terrorist category. And again, it sounds good on the surface. You're like, right? Nobody should be calling for violence. Okay, fine. That's as good as far as goes. Now,
but remember, silence is violence.
Well, of course, silence is violence. But also, look at who they group in and who they don't group. So if we just go group by group, critical infrastructure, yeah, shouldn't be committing active violence against that. Soft targets and mass gatherings, yeah, shouldn't be doing that. Faith institutions, churches, synagogues, mosques, yeah, shouldn't be doing that. Institutions of higher education. Now, that's an interesting one, because some of us, myself, I don't know if David, I'll let David speak for himself, whether he also holds this opinion, have the opinion that the institutions of higher learning are actually a net negative to society. Like the opinions that they push out, the thing that gives them credibility in the public eye, which allows people at certain institutions to have very destructive policy proposals, and those are demanded to be accepted because they come from those institutions. That's not a healthy thing for society to think about its institutions of higher education. That doesn't mean that I would call for acts of violence on them, but I have the opinion that I don't hold them up in this high place of esteem. And based on how broadly this net is cast, mis, dis, and malinformation, if I give you any statistics about how socially and culturally destructive our institutions of higher learning are, if I could give you statistics or show or give you an argument on that, well, then I would be guilty of mis, dis, or malinformation. Even if I didn't call for any violence to happen to them, I don't hold the correct opinion that wouldn't embolden somebody else to do it. So again, look at these lists and who they include and who they don't.
Careful now.
So next group, racial and religious minorities. Yeah, no reason to talk anything about that. Government facilities and personnel. Okay, government. So here's a point that I made on this very podcast during the George Floyd examples, and I'll make it again. I was I was upset that the anger was directed towards private businesses. Like, why are you burning down your local mom and pop shop? They aren't the police. They're the same victims of the police abuse you are. Why are you stealing from their stores and burning down their shops when you're mad at the government's force agents? And all I said was, I didn't say go do it. And I didn't say anything other than to say that it would make sense if the group that you're upset at is actually the group you're targeting. So, like,
we get it.
Yes.
Don't become a terrorist again.
I'm not saying anything else.
A terrorist that day.
But that opinion, again, in the context of who should your anger be focused at, that conversation is now mis, dis, or malinformation, because somebody can run with that, connect their own dots for things I didn't say, and say, yep, that radicalized me.
Gotta clip it. Because we can't have any context. It just has to be this one little narrow thing that you said that made you a terrorist.
So when they say government facilities and personnel, they say including law enforcement and military. I just made a law enforcement point earlier about the thin blue line and the red coats. Okay? Just not only made that one, but then I also always make the point about military, and that I don't agree with a lot of the decisions that are made in terms of the foreign policy in this country. Again, I guess that's mis, dis, or malinformation.
Dangerous things to have your own opinion nowadays.
And here's the one at the very end of that list: the media, comma. Oh, again, don't question the media.
Yeah, you can't question them at all.
Back to the Joe Rogan thing. If you question the media, how freaking dare you? The media that we choose, right? And then the last one.
Wouldn't Joe Rogan be media as well?
Yeah, but he's not the right kind of media.
Right.
Again, everything's subjective.
Define it, right.
They're defining who is
right.
Just like Bhattacharya and Gupta and Koldorf are not experts.
No.
They're choosing.
But Sanjay Gupta is.
Correct.
Yes. Right.
And then the end of that sentence, and this is, you've probably heard this in other writing, but this is a common tactic in legal writing, a catch-all. Right? You'll see this at, like, if you actually read statutes that your elected representative passes, sometimes there's catch-all terms. And this at the end of that sentence, so after the media is, and perceived ideological opponents. Perceived ideological opponents? I have plenty of ideological opponents on the aspects of minimum wage, on the aspects of the validity or justness of public education, on whether or not the government has moral justification to tax for things like roads and other critical infrastructure, military, yada, yada. I have a lot of ideological differences with people.
We get it.
So when they say people based on perceived ideological... do you remember a couple years ago when a rabid Bernie supporter went to a congressional baseball game and literally shot at Republican members of Congress? You remember that?
I remember that.
I would say that guy had some ideological
disagreements
with the people on that field.
And he took it right to the people that he had a grievance with.
So again, this is my appeal to the left here that would otherwise cheer this as being against Trumpers and anti-vaxxers. When the pendulum swings back, are you sure you're not going to be standing right in front of it? Clip that.
I mean,
That's
the whole point.
We gotta put that on a shirt.
That's the whole point. It's like they're sticking that. They're like one of those whack-a-moles. They just stand there and just are waiting for you to hit them with the mallet. They're like, come on, what do you got? You got nothing. You ain't got nothing. And then they whack them like, oh, how dare you? They hit me. That was violence. Why would they do that? Well, you hit them first.
And I mean, that pretty much concludes the thing, because the third point is calls by foreign terrorist organizations for attacks on the United States based on recent events. We're approaching this from the domestic example, but notice that.
Yes,
we've said it.
There's a can of worms that we don't need to open.
Yeah, we've said enough.
We're tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
so that should alarm every single person, left, right, or center. That should be.
But to go bird's eye view, if you think that it's not something today, and it might not be something today, the Patriot Act didn't immediately change everyone's life. Like, we didn't wake up and the sky was fucking green. But over time, the news tightens. And it tightens and it tightens. The temperature in the water gets hotter and hotter. And us little frogs are in there going, well, is this really? Like, one time I thought I was having a heart attack, right?
Sounds pretty serious.
Exactly. It's really serious.
Like, this isn't a joke. Like, you're telling me a life event.
No, this is actually, like, it's funny, but it is also, like, my left arm hurt a little bit. Like, my chest was compressed a little bit. I was like having a hard time breathing.
I have no idea where this is going, and I was like, love it. I want it to continue.
But here's the thing. It's like, in that moment of like sheer panic, it's like, is this really the thing? Like, is this really happening? Or am I going to be that jackass that calls the ambulance and go, I just had some gas. I'm sorry, guys. I just needed to fart. I didn't need to call you at all. But thank you for coming out. Like, I feel like that's where America is right now. It's like, are we in the pot right now? Is the water turning up? Is that what's going on? Or are we just being a little canary in the coal mine-ish, so to speak? Like, do I really need to dial 911? Do I really need to trouble people with this?
I gotta say, that story and its connection to what we've discussed was so spot on. I don't care what the listeners think. I appreciated that connection.
But yes, now
is this the one? Should we panic?
Should I?
Is my neighbor panicking? Is he panicking more or less than I should be panicking? Should I turn my panic up a couple notches?
He looks pretty uneased. He looks uncomfortable at best.
And again, tying that back to the episode, who defines the line between general unease and an actual threat actor?
We should probably send him some crack cocaine because he looks pretty uneased over there.
It's like, wait a minute. If every grocery bag trip that you see your neighbor come in with, and they just got tons and tons of cans of beans and non-perishables, and you're thinking, do they really eat all that? Because they were just here yesterday.
For some reason,
6 loads of cans of beans.
Sounds like someone's digging at all hours of the night.
Is seeing your neighbor do that, does that qualify them as a threat actor?
Is he putting in a gun turret?
Where's the line? Nobody knows.
Are those motion sensors?
But even though we're laughing and it is a joke, I'm going to be serious right now.
Mostly.
The fact that we're pointing out that the fact that there's no identifiable line, and that's what's so funny. That's also what's terrifying.
Yeah. To even contemplate this in any amount of time, it's very unsettling.
And I will say to the proponents of such a thing, I don't think if you're trying to stop that, if you're trying to pat down is the water getting too hot behavior from some of your citizens, maybe it's not a good idea to just pick up a pen and a phone and write the First Amendment out of the Constitution. That might upset some people. I don't know if it would radicalize them. Maybe some, maybe not. But just going back to that whole thing, we always say, like, who's sowing the discord and who's doing this and who's doing that in society. You're the ones that are creating people with the dangerous mentality that you're asking for by doing shit like this.
You are the ones who are the ball lickers. Gonna fuck your mothers while you watch them cry like pansy bitches.
That's definitely getting flipped. I'm hearing that on a campaign trail someday. Hey, did you and David say X, Y, or Z?
I would never say that.
Can I either confirm or deny? That is a deep fake, sir.
These are not the drones you're looking for.
That is a deep fake. He did not say that.
You can't prove it was me.
We have you on camera. That catches it.
They do not, because we suck at our jobs and haven't added the podcast camera in yet. We've been promising it for 37 episodes.
Maybe that's how they get you. See, we feel this pressure to go visual.
Got a little anonymity going our way.
They're pressuring us into going visual. Is my conspiracy theory. Put your tinfoil hats on, boys and girls.
All right, now you're letting the listeners into our normal conversations.
Maybe they're pressuring content creators to go visual so they can have you on stuff to clip up to destroy you later.
Exactly. So they'll have
and see your face and stuff.
Facial recognition software. I knew it. Get your tinfoil out. Wrap your nuts.
I think this is a segment of the show. We should have a tinfoil segment every show.
Welcome to the tinfoil dick conspiracy.
We're just
hardball.
Some random thing.
That's another thing.
Based on the numbers of the last couple years, we're probably going to hit more than we miss if we come up with random conspiracies off the wall.
I don't know if that's a fucking good,
hey, we said
good
that
thing or a bad thing. If we're soothsayers or what's the bad one? Nostradamus? What's that dickhead?
Yeah.
What are the doomsday sayers or what are they? Prophets or
all I gotta say is the people that write bulletins like this will be hot on our trail if we start getting too good at predicting stuff.
They're gonna start saying that in that fucking 127th podcast in Australia needs to be watched closely.
Right.
So where could they find this delicious little nugget of truth?
They can find this at wmdpodcast.com/81. And we always encourage people to go to the website because on the front page, you can sign up for the email list. And if our TikTok experience has told us anything, we are just one post away from being kicked off of basically every social media platform we're on.
We always knew it was there.
The fact that we've escaped some others, I'm on my third Facebook ban on my personal page. You started out with potatoes.
You say it with such pride.
I do. It's street cred.
Walk around with like swagger in a step. Like I've been kicked off Facebook.
A lot of nothing. Okay, I have come across this on TikTok before. A lot of the shall we say OnlyFans creators are very happy about saying that they're on their third TikTok because their posts keep getting banned. Well, that kind of makes you want to look at the rest of the posts that haven't been.
Put your goddamn nipple away.
She's trying to find the line.
Why's it got to be a she?
You want to understand where the line is as well. This is research, damn it.
I just want to know where to stop. All right.
So anyway, because this episode is probably going to get banned for that little exchange right there.
Jesus.
If you're on the email list, which you can find at the homepage of wndpodcast.com, you will always be in contact with us. Now, I've been a bad boy and not been writing very many emails lately, and I have heard things from recent signees that are like, hey, I joined, I don't ever get anything. Just like we're going to hold David's feet to the fire about starting more social media content,
what's that?
We're going to hold my feet to the fire about doing emails more regularly. So, David, because I know you're on the email list, every time you see an email, that is your prompt to make one TikTok.
Ugh.
On your personal account or on the WMD, preferably on the WMD account.
I'm going to do it on the
people
WMD.
want to see your beautiful face.
No one cares about me, the normal person.
God damn, another detour. I am going to take this over an hour. Okay, anyway, that's why you need, all of those reasons are why you need to go sign up on the email list.
Because Dane can't shut the fuck up and our goddamn podcast is going broke.
Dag nabbit. So that.
Yes.
You can also find us on any podcast app. Just type in Weapons of Beam Destruction, YouTube, Odyssey for all the videos, because some we have either got pulled from YouTube or not allowed to put up. So we've put those on Odyssey. If you're a video guy, which we're going to get in, or gal, we're going to get into video later. And then also TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. So those are all the ways you can find us, share us, like us.
Facebook, not so much.
Support us, help us with the algos.
We get removed. because somebody doesn't like potatoes.
Somebody has an infatuation with potatoes. So anyway, with that being said, we will catch everybody next week on episode 82.
Stay safe, stay free.
But don't be on a list in DC.